Hi, Alex. I've come over today to talk with you about the Medical Device Single Audit Program, lovingly referred to as the MDSAP or the MDSAP.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Linda. Real quick, we're going to be talking about the Medical Device Single Audit Program today. There's some information up here on the slide I'm not going to read to you, but basically what we're going to get to is the benefits to both the industry and to the regulatory agencies, how to prepare for, what to expect with the MDSAP.
Yeah,
There's alignment on what we're going to call it, right?
Yeah, a lot of interest with the regulatory authorities that are involved. And obviously, the companies that are going to be using it have some potential benefits as well. So it'll be great to explore that today.
Absolutely. So a real quick agenda, we'll get into some introductions, an overview of the MDSAP, where did this come from, who's participating, and then really we'll do a deep dive here, Linda, with you, kind of getting into what is expected from the industry and from the regulatory agencies. So my name is Alex Butler. I came out of the industry. I was in product development in medical device, released a couple of Class 2 products. I was involved in audits, both good and bad, audits we felt we were prepared for, audits that we were less than prepared for. Either way, it was always a big undertaking for the organization.
It really is.
Understanding those expectations.
Huge.
I'm currently a product marketing manager with MasterControl. My involvement with the MDSAP has been really researching what solutions we can provide as a software provider in order to understand this new industry change.
That's great. And I'm Linda Chatwin, and I've been involved in the medical device industry for a number of years. Was actually around when all of the new requirements for quality system regulations came into effect. Worked with CE marking, the new QSRs through FDA and so forth. Done a lot of work with worldwide agencies, helped clients around the world get into compliance, and just really have noticed that there's a step up in regulations that are being issued in the world these days, so it's really helpful to have some assistance and help with that. I'm with Emergo now. The UL company acquired Emergo recently, and so there's some great resources on Emergo's site with regards to the MDSAP as well.
And with my time in the industry, I've run into your name quite a bit, both in my last job and some consulting gigs and articles and whatnot, so I look forward to hearing your part of this presentation.
Great.
So real quick, an overview of the MDSAP. Where did this come from? The IMDRF, which is the
International Medical Device Regulatory Forum.
I knew I'd mess it up. Too many acronyms. They held an initial a meeting back in Singapore in 2012, which they outlined a bunch of these programs up on the screen. We've got UDI up here. We've got the MDSAP. But they basically outlined a working group that would last for about 3 years. They kicked out a project plan, all the deliverables, those who would be participating, those who would be observing, and they took it from there.
And put a pilot program into place. The FDA really spearheaded a lot of that.
So there's just a statement of cooperation without reading this, but really I wanted to illustrate this slide that there is a lot of participation in this. There's those who are actively involved, who have committed to this, who have signed agreements. There's those observing, but really one of the purposes of my slides is to illustrate that everybody's watching. Everybody's interested to see where this will go.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is that there's 5 companies or countries that are really heavily involved with it: Australia, Brazil, Canada, United States, and Japan. And even though it's sort of a European initiative, the Europeans are one of the watchers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all comes together. So really the objectives coming out of that initial meeting and what they wanted to know and learn throughout that pilot program, they wanted to create this program that would instill confidence across the globe. Again, everybody's watching. There's a lot of big players in the industry and the agencies that are all participating in this. Also, to decrease the burden upon both the industry and the regulatory agencies while increasing positive outcomes. Can we get the same or better data and actionable items from these audits with less of a burden? We want to foster acceptance across the globe. There's a lot of talk about harmonization. IMDRF is front of the line with that. And then really free up government resources.
Right, and that's a big one on freeing up government resources. There are so many initiatives out there. Governments are involved in so many regulatory programs that having some of those resources freed up is going to be a big help.
Yes. So the pilot report key points, some of these proof of concept criteria, they outlined 7 of these that they wanted to really dig into and establish over that 3-year pilot program. And really, without getting into the details here in the slide, they wanted to prove that basically they could achieve the same results, if not better results, free up resources, and really get involvement throughout the industry.
And you know, one of the things that the FDA's been a little, I guess, sad about, if you will, is they haven't had as much involvement from industry as they had hoped. But the Canadians are really taking it forward and going with it as a requirement going forward.
They're accepting that immediately. So at the end of this pilot program, the reports came out, and they went through all of these proof of concept criteria, and basically they met all but 2. So number 2, and I apologize, I can't really see my slides here, but it was determined that proof of concept criteria would be eliminated. The data they got was meaningful. They were able to glean the lessons that they needed from that in order to move forward on that proof of concept. Point 7, they did not get enough manufacturing participants as they would have liked to have got, but they were able to, again, get some good information from those that they did, and really, I think the strength of the rest of the report supported them in going forward, even with these 2 items left off the table.
Yeah, it's true.
Again, a high level, the objectives of this process, the design, everything behind the scenes was really meant to match the criteria of ISO 13485-2003, Brazil's RDC Anvisa, and 21 CFR Part 820. I believe you get a little bit deeper into that in your presentation. Quick question that came up last time is, how are they going to roll in 2016? And I think you addressed that.
Yeah. One of the interesting things is that it did start with the 2003 ISO standard, but really the 2016 standard is closer to the FDA requirements, and so it really plays into the whole philosophy for the MDSAP program.
So it's current and it's topical and ready to go.
Exactly.
So members of the MDSAP, direct members of the IMDRF, obviously, they're kind of spearheading this. TGA Australia, Brazil's Anvisa, Canada, again, Canada is going to adopt this immediately. And the United States, they're going to take place of routine inspections, not replace inspections for PMA. And the FDA reserves the right to come in and still inspect and audit when needed.
Of course.
And then those who are observing, Japan's Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization, and as you said before, Europe. The difference between observing and those actively participating: observers are invited to meetings, their feedback is taken into account, but really those who are actively participating have made commitments moving forward to roll this into their processes.
Okay, so talk for a few minutes here about some of the benefits of the whole MDSAP program. Again, really enabling regulatory oversight of quality management systems and minimizing regulatory burdens on industry, so hopefully they can get fewer audits throughout the year for showing compliance with the various agencies that they're interfacing with. Really having more efficient and flexible use of regulatory resources, so there's a work share that the sovereignties will be working with, and have less requirements for going in and making regulatory audits. It really is to promote alignment among the regulatory approaches, as you mentioned before, so the different countries will be more aligned on what their requirements are, and industry is going to really enjoy that if that really comes to fruition. And then, of course, having consistency and predictability amongst all of the regulatory agencies will be really great.
As much as we can enjoy an audit, right?
Yeah, for sure. So there's requirements for the auditing organizations. We'll refer to those as the AOs. they have to really apply and be accepted into the program, and there's a level of acceptance and then being able to just go out and do audits on their own.
I don't get to go be an AO tomorrow.
Well, you could apply, but CROs can become an AO, but they have to ensure that they're going to still remain impartial as an AO. So that would be interesting to see how they do that. The AOs have to be assessed by the regulatory authorities, and then the assessment terms are going to follow a document that the IMDRF have put out. There's going to be a 4-year cycle for them, so they're going to have to be audited and reassessed each 4 years. And they have to undergo witnessed audits by the regulatory authorities to show that they complete qualifications as an auditing organization and really have recognition under the MDSAP program. So there's also requirements for manufacturers. They have to secure and maintain a contract with the recognized auditing organization that they're going to be using in their organization. They have to participate and contact the authorized organization to perform the MDSAP audits. There aren't new requirements in the country's regulatory framework, but each of the participating regulatory agencies' requirements are pulled into the MDSAP.
So the pilot program didn't create new requirements?
No.
Okay.
No new requirements. So, and you talked before about the regulatory schemes that were going to be involved in that. Wanted to talk more specifically about the requirements by country. So really in Australia, their intention is to accept the MDSAP certificates as evidence of compliance with 13485, and then that is a pathway that leads to the TGA certificate being issued. In Brazil, the Anvisa is going to use MDSAP audits in lieu of pre-market inspections, so that is really going to help cut down on the backlog that they've had there. It's been really hard for countries to get their pre-audits done there. You mentioned Canada already being out of the pilot. Japan will be using the MDSAP audit report as compliance to their internal requirements as well. And so that will eliminate on-site inspections of organizations and allow the market holders to substitute a considerable amount of documentation that they have to keep in their files. And then again, the U.S. will substitute for routine FDA inspections. That does not include the inspections that will have to be done under the electronic product requirements. And there will be 1 month allowed for responses, so that's really a benefit for industry.
What is the 1 month allowed for responses?
Well, the FDA usually required response on an inspection within 15 days, and so that really doubles the time.
Excellent.
The World Health Organization are working on pre-qualification for diagnostic devices, and so they're really thinking about recognizing the MDSAP audits as evidence of compliance for that program. So that should really help get some approvals on those diagnostic devices. And then preparing for the single audit program, companies are really going to want to understand the program. Audits are going to be conducted according to documents that the regulatory authorities have in place. There's a sequence of tasks that are contemplated, and it's really based on the FDA QSET approach. So under the ISO 1345, that was a process approach to auditing, but the QSET is more of a top-down.
Okay.
So that's what the new documents are based on. There are MDSAP materials that are available at the link on the slide here. FDA has really posted a lot of information there, so it's really helpful.
Yeah.
The audit process then, an audit report will be issued at the end of the audit. There's a standard template that's been put in place for that. Nonconformities are scaled, are graded on a scale. So it's 1 to 5. 1's the least critical, 5's the most critical. They put it on a matrix. I'll show you in a minute. It's really kind of an interesting grading idea that they have. But there is criteria in the GFTH documents that have also been posted on that FDA site. So the grading matrix then shows the impact on the quality management system and the occurrence. So if you only have one occurrence and it's a minimal impact on the quality management system, you receive a 1. If you have multiple occurrences and it's still a minor impact, that would be a 2. And then single occurrence but a more significant impact would be a 3. Multiple occurrences, big impact, a 4. And then what's done is they end up putting this on this regulatory audit information exchange form. They have listed all of the requirements from the various entities that are involved in the single audit program. You'll notice there's a column here for the EU. So even though the EU is not involved, of course, it's their requirements that are being looked at for compliance. So all of that is assembled together on this exchange form and used by the regulatory authorities to figure out the audit outcomes. So the regulatory authorities then determine the appropriate actions to take once those audit reports are in. There's some timelines that have to be taken into account. If there's more than one grade 5 nonconformity, then there's some other requirements that come into place for what needs to be done in the corrective actions. They're taking a look at maybe there's a public health threat or fraudulent activity. There's going to be more regulatory consequences for that. If they find those circumstances, then whoever did the audit will be advising all the regulatory authorities about those concerns.
They're the ones, they have 5 days to...
Yeah, 5 days to do that. And then there has to be an audit package that is provided to the regulatory authorities within 45 days of the end of the audit. Once the audit report is issued, just a general audit report, the manufacturers are going to have 15 calendar days to issue a remediation plan. So again, when any of those scary things happen, then the timeline for responding with a corrective action and remediation plan comes into effect. The authorized organization will conduct closeout activities. And of course, regulatory authorities always may come in and do a special audit anytime that they want to do that. So once you have a successful audit outcome, then you will get a certificate that shows a reference to the audit being performed under the MDSAP program. It'll show compliance to ISO 13485 and to the applicable medical device regulations to which the organization is required to meet. We have a variety of sources here that organizations can look at, go and get more information.
I visited these sites quite a bit in the last couple of weeks, actually. A lot of good information, a lot of good documentation out there.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
And I think that's it for today. Lots more to follow.
Lots more to follow. Feel free to email us with the email here up on the screen. We're happy to answer those questions, and it's been great to see you again.
Good to see you, Alex.